ready and together for all of the judges, programmed all of the advertising. Basically, other than asking me how much money can he spend, he did it all. So this was one of those things where, okay, thank you. So just a huge thank you to Nikita.
Love the
Thanks,
Facebook
Nikita.
updates too.
I think you're live.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff.
We should be back live in just 1 second, Councilor, if we're not already.
My father got called to the school for the same thing about me in the same grade.
It's just because they weren't.
I moved into the welding class and the school called my parents in saying, take care of the welding, girls shouldn't be in welding. And my father says, you serious?
Mr. Chair, we are back live. Thanks, everybody. Sorry for the delay there.
We're back.
Thanks, Nikita.
Thank you.
We'll start with 8.1, which is blue sky discussion.
Okay, well, in the couple of months since we've met, there have undoubtedly been a ton of things happening and going on. I wanted to include for Blue Sky, one of the things that caught my attention as being completely strange and different. Yes. No, that's okay. If you want to yourself, go ahead. Thank you. But so one of the things that caught my eye that was completely different, and according to the stories and the videos I've been able to find, construction is underway. So, I mean, leave it to Saudi Arabia to do something completely strange and different, but this Line City project, imagine a city that is 200 meters wide and what was it, 15 miles long, and has a bullet train patching you from one side to the other. I mean, just incredible stuff. It throws city planning and everything completely on its ear, and yeah, that was the one thing that caught my attention this summer that was just absolutely completely different, and they do bill it as a new wonder of the world, so best of luck to them with that, but yeah, that's really blue sky.
True.
I'll make the motion to accept blue sky discussion as information.
Motion accepted. Call the question, all in favor? So passed.
Okay, and then as well, it's been an interesting front on the economic part of things, from 8% inflation to 6% inflation to 5.5% unemployment to 4% unemployment. Lots of different stuff going back and forth. So the usual reports are here for the economic review. The Alberta Economic Indicators at a glance, the labor market notes. The summary basically, we're not in a full labor shortage in our area yet at this point in time, but we're pretty darn close. We're somewhere between that 4.5% to 5.5%. And we certainly are seeing that in some specific cases, people are needing to offer varying incentives of different kinds and that sort of thing on the front end and the back end and all of that. The good news on the crop report is crops seem to be looking pretty good and fairly optimistic, and given where things are at world supply wise and all that, commodity prices even seem to be up a bit. So hopefully we end up with a pretty good year for our farmer friends, and that's sort of the background and the update on the economic reports, but it's all there for everybody to see.
Any comments on?
I'll make the motion that we accept, information items as information.
Motion accepted. Call the question, all in favor? So passed.
Thank you. And then on to the work plan updates. So the other thing that I hope everyone sort of noticed with the agenda, the last meeting we had some suggestions on doing some variations to the agenda from previously. So that included moving the work plan updates to the end, providing a couple of written points. So I hope that I've kind of got that right. And then you'll also notice that on the RFDs, we've also added in a bit of a rationale under each of the RFDs, and that's something that I hadn't really been doing previously, but in order to provide completeness for the committee and for our residents and our folks that are watching, it just makes sense to kind of give a bit of a rationale under each one of those items. So that brings now all of our RFDs kind of to the level that we have with all of our other committees and with council. And so with all of that in mind, moving through into the work plan updates, the Growth Rita Wild Alberta update is the first one, and I have a few comments and some things I can mention there. We've talked a little bit about growth and about wild, but I'm going to hand this over to our representative on the committee, to Councillor Kulkin, to let him start off, and then I'll fill in any gaps or try to answer anything else.
Well, it's been an interesting journey for me to figure all of this stuff out, but I really think that what's happening is that we're starting to flesh out things that are shortcomings, that are where we really couldn't move or we wouldn't be effective. And as far as the Rita is concerned, we know that we have to have an identity that aligns with what we do as an economic development committee, and what we and it's important that if I'm a representative on the growth board, that my oversight makes sure that any investment that the municipality makes is of value. And I really had a problem with that for quite a long time, because we didn't have an identity, and I leaned on Bert quite heavily to help me understand exactly how this all worked. And it's now become very apparent that the Ag Service Board, with its ag profile, has a role to play. The Economic Development Committee has a huge role to play. And until we understand exactly what our regional partners' assets and strengths are, we really can't do anything as growth to help out Woodlands, because Woodlands is doing the lion's share of economic development, because we have an economic development officer who is really working hard to bring stuff here. And there was that very criticism that happened at our last meeting, where the partner municipalities say, well, how come you're protecting all of this stuff that's going on, because we have non-disclosure agreements. And that's past that, that's past it. They have to understand as well that if we don't know what they want, we can't really do anything for them. And so we need to have them come to the table and tell us, what is it that you think that we can do for you, not the other way around, because we have no information. And I think that was one of the things that Bert really pounded into the group. And so I see a good, we've now hired a couple of consultants that are going to put workshops together. And I just checked with the chairperson here to see where they'd moved this, and they're preparing our first workshops now. And that's going to involve municipalities, and we know that we cannot just have elected officials at the table. We have to have business people. We have to have a big involvement from communities to understand better what it is that they want. So that's kind of where the growth board is heading, and it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be expensive, because I think we've hired the right two people. We had a really good candidate online, but of course, those guys are in high demand. But he gave us a couple of people that I think are going to do that job, and it's going to help this economic development committee immensely. once we get those workshops in place, because we'll be participating in those. So if you could add anything there, Bert, that would be.
Thank you. So, yeah, there's a real, identity crisis isn't quite the right word, but, we need to make sure that we have the right sort of value statements in the right direction for growth if we're going to look at recruiting and bringing on new members. And I think Councillor Culkin has hit the nail on the head. Rather than a rep from growth showing up to a council meeting and saying, hey guys, we have this great organization and here's what we do and you guys should give us $5,000 a year to be part of it. We're gonna take a completely different approach. And so that is, and these are the three questions that I put forward that I think we should ask to prospective members. What's in your strategic plan, that might sound familiar, that relates to local and regional economic development? What do you want to develop or grow in your community or within the region? And what could you contribute to regional growth? Is it staff expertise, network connections, experience, etc.? So you go in with those questions at the beginning, and this is sort of where the consultants are developing the workshops, and they'll be inviting municipalities to these workshops so that we can kind of go into some of these questions. And then there were sort of four other things, and this is based on my experience as an EDO in 2 provinces. What are some of the things that a RETA can do or a regional group can do that a municipality can't do as effectively on its own? So one is regional tourism promotion and destination development. We know that tourists don't really care where their municipal boundary is. If they're coming to Whitecourt, that might mean they're coming to the county. Or if they're going to Barhead, that might mean they're also going to Fort Assiniboine. Tourists don't care about municipal boundaries, and we need to find a way to get over that when we do our tourism marketing and promotion. We can provide market intelligence on key local industries, and much as Member at Large Art has mentioned to us, knowing here are the sites that are ready for development. Here's where we know based on our land use bylaw that kind of a project is going to fit, right? That's the strategic part in the strategic economic development. Looking for regional representation at conferences. Well, we mentioned just earlier in the meeting today the crossover on the ministry dinner. So AMA, RMA, EDA, EDAC, IEDC, energy, hydrogen, carbon capture, trade corridors, Pacific Northwest Economic Region, all that kind of stuff. One municipality is not going to have the deep pockets to be able to send one person to each of those. But if you have a regional representative, you can intake and bring in that knowledge and put the representation out for a region. Local experts, local ECDEV and other staff can help to identify, like we said, specific areas and to help to facilitate local and local government contacts. So those are some of the strengths that the RETAs have. And I think that, through circumstances beyond our control, what's happened is that I think we've kind of gotten away from saying, here's what the RETA can do. It's not all about, we want you to put $5,000 into a group so we can give out business awards once a year and throw a big party, right? And that's some of the knowledge and intelligence that's come out of talking with the consultants, is them understanding that a large part of the activity of regional groups is around justifying their existence and chasing down cash. And it's been that way. It was a failed model in Saskatchewan, and we're seeing that issue here. And when the government funding got cut from 100,000 down to 50, it really affected RETA operations for those reasons.
Well, the point that Bert made that really became apparent was the question was asked by one of our board members. What are the qualifications of these individuals? And so what came up was Alberta Hub, which was an interesting conversation because the consultant that we have no longer works for Alberta Hub. And because he figures it is merely providing a place for all of the different partners to sit at a table to look for funding for Alberta Hub. But what do they actually do within, and this is what Bert's talking, what do they actually do for the municipalities that are participating? And this is where, Bert and I, in the discussions we got into, were like, how are we going to be relevant? Like, how are we going to actually do these things? And so we don't want to go there. So if we have partners that come on board, we want partners that are going to be actively involved for the purpose of developing regional interests, and really we want them involved so we understand their strength, they understand our strengths, so that it doesn't matter where the capital infrastructure may be built, as much as what is the overall effect for the region. And I think that's kind of where Perry and Kelly are going to take us, is in those workshops, is what is it that we really want to accomplish here, so that we don't just get funding for the sake of having an organization.
Interesting.
And then to switch to the Wild Alberta side of things, as the point mentions there, the TRF application, we haven't received the final decision yet. And that's getting to be a bit of a concern because I believe we only have until March of '23 to spend those funds. So we submitted that application in February, I believe. So, yeah, that's the frustrating part. But anyway, that's where we're sitting on.
The
the
good
Wild
side to that, though, is that we have one real workhorse of a board member, and the guy that's doing a lot of the legwork and building the website are prepared for this. So what Marvin said, he said to us, I'll just clone myself to get the work done. So what he means by that, I don't know it, but he understands that he's going to have to get outside help to get all of those products, I guess, that we call it, in place so that we can actually spend that money effectively.
Some of the content that we can develop, which would be the podcast and the interview and some of that stuff that it could be developed now and then canned and then used, at the appropriate time next year. So there is kind of that ability to sort of pre-produce, I guess, some of the content that would still be very relevant, very meaningful, and very much in line with what we'd applied for.
Well, I think as well is that we've got a guy that knows exactly how all of this stuff works, and he knows that government generally isn't as quick as the contractor. So he understands that, exactly what Bert said, that this is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll figure it out.
So if there's no further questions on the RITA, then the next item is the ag profile. And you'll see attached a summary of where we are at for content and some associated links that we've provided. We've done a fair bit of work with Carol and with her team. Dean Labarge has been retained by her as well to be one of our writers and content producers on the project. And Dean has been wonderful. He actually joined me on the Open Farm Days, and both days he was out at each of the farms that we were at and was doing everything from drone footage to from drone footage to stills to interviews, all kinds of stuff. So Dean has been wonderful to work with, as Carol has been, and I think we've got a fair bit of it moving along. We have until the end of October to kind of get everything produced and out there, but we should be on budget and on time with everything. But because it's the first time we've done it, we're sort of discovering a few things along the way. I know this was also reviewed at the Ag Service Board meeting last week, and I think from what I understand, the Ag Service Board Committee is happy with the direction and with where things are at. And so it's just a question of, is there anything that's missing there, or does anyone have anything? I know specifically we're looking for local color stories and I'm going to talk to the camera, naming contest submissions. Our contest is still open until September 30th, so please, anyone who would like to, we need naming contest submissions. $50 grand prize, bragging rights, and a write-up on you and your family within the guide. So that's my sales pitch. And we've been giving that since the trade fair in May, and they get a lot of interest, and we've handed out a lot of forms. There's only been a few that have come back. So we just want to let everybody know the contest is open and is healthy, but the project is moving along well, I think, and we still have some work to do, but all the arrows are pointing in the right direction.
Any more questions?
Looks good.
Yes, next is the photo contest.
Okay, so I'll draw everyone's attention and thank you for our opportunity to recognize Nikita a little bit earlier. He's been absolutely wonderful to work with the last 2 years, and we're feeling, I think, to the point that, you know, having this photo contest on an annual basis is not only sustainable, but is something that's really beneficial. We had a number of submissions again this year. But to the big news, and to our Facebook post that was on the Woodlands County Facebook page yesterday, congratulations to the 2022 photo contest winners. One entry from each of the 4 categories was selected to win a Woodlands County prize package and $150 in cash. So congratulations to this year's winners. Kendalina Schultz for the duck in McLeod Lake photo, and that was in the places category. In the faces category, we have Debbie Kitchen, who shows Fred, and I'm assuming that's the gentleman who's in the picture, fly fishing near Windfall. In the farm category, we had Daniel Anderson and the Highland Cow in Anselmo. And then in the youth category, Madison Schulte for the Northern Lights near Groat Creek. So thanks to everybody who participated, and keep an eye on our county Facebook page for more contests. So we wanted to recognize all of those folks and thank you for your submissions. And then on the background part of it, Nikita's given me a bit of a timeline and some background here. So the contest started on July 4th, ran until September 5th. Most submissions came in during the last couple of weeks of the contest. In 2021, we had 94 total submissions, and we had 9 entries that weren't valid for a variety of reasons. It could have been all of the paperwork wasn't finished, or the photos weren't of the appropriate size or resolution. Those seem to be kind of the big sticking points. But in 2021, we had 94 total. In 2022, 130 total valid submissions, and we had 12 that weren't valid entries. But we had 29 entrants total this year that put photos forward. We had 4 in the youth category, and then 7 others that unfortunately didn't complete the release form in the youth category. So that's something where we will work on that education component for the contest moving forward. And I know during the contest, Nikita was reaching out to each of the applicants as things were coming in. So we tried to do everything we could to elicit all of the additional information. So we had about ads running on Boom and on XM 105 starting from August 18th to September 5th. We had posters also in the Fort, Assiniboine and Blue Ridge libraries, and notices up on signboards in both communities. The advertising budget that we had was about $1,500. We had $500 for both radio stations, and then $500 for our Facebook social media advertising. 3 judges in the contest, so our deputy mayor, Heather Anderson, our community services coordinator, and an economic development committee member at large. And I believe we had Lesia repeat her role again this year as a judge. And so the judges were sent a link to an online folder which contained the photos, and then you guys had a chance to have your meeting to choose, and I love how Nikita's put this, the ones worthy of winning the prizes. Of the entrants that Nikita had spoke to, they felt that entering the contest overall was simple and made sense. Entries had to be made by emailing photos and forms to photocontestwoodlands.ab.ca. And that was about it. We may have to provide a bit more clarity around the contest rules, but that was Nikita's take, and Nikita, thanks for the report. Does anyone have any questions on our photo contest?
It's great photos.
Yeah. Especially
Lovely.
the cattle ones. All of them were
The
good.
cattle was beautiful. They were a lot of nice ones.
Where were your bird photos?
And I was glad to see the youth involved.
Oh, you
Haven't
can't,
made that
you can't.
change, so.
Yeah, I like the categories this year.
Yes.
They were good categories. Last year was more
I just
open.
donated
more
it.
specific.
Oh, you donated.
Yeah.
Those
they
were
were
good photos.
Sorry about their favorite spot on the river.
No, no, like, you know, the thing is, what this photo contest really does
fun.
is it gives you an incredible idea of the beautiful places we have in this county. It, and the other thing is that the amount of people who participated was awesome. So, yeah.
That's a slick roll.
And it solves a huge issue for us, which is how do you economically and meaningfully resource and refresh your photo supply?
Yep.
And it's been a great tool, and we'll just we'll see where it goes next year. But I mean, I think we've proven that it's going to be sustainable. So
And then just make a comment in regard, I saw the prizes. They were the gift cards, like the
yes,
Visa gift cards,
yes.
just to ensure that they're the ones that, when you get them, that the fees don't start.
Fees are already paid. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
because they'll run out, and then if the person doesn't use them, we'll have no money.
right. So
Because some of them are tricky.
yes.
Just a note, I don't need to.
The activation fees on each of the cards were paid when the cards were purchased, I can guarantee that. But in regards to expiry, I'm not, I should have checked.
There's a monthly fee that they'll, if it's worth $100, will go down to 95, down to 90, if they're not used. I
Okay,
should know, I'm
okay.
just saying. I've
Well-
lost money, because
Made the kids
I
still
was
on that
stocking
too.
them. I was stocking them, saved them for something big, and
Goodness.
nothing in the
Good to
end.
know.
I think what's nice about this is with the change in technology, our cell phones take such good pictures now, and everybody's packing their phone so they can take a picture anytime. Like, I've got a really good camera with a telephoto lens and everything, but I don't pack it with me all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we get so
Lovely
many
ones.
entrances, is just how easy it is to take a picture nowadays, and they are top quality pictures from a cell phone.
Even the stars. Okay, so many, you can take a picture of the Big Dipper with my iPhone, like,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's really cool.
I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
It
it's
really
fun.
brings a lot of community activity together.
I was just wondering if you guys are missing out on a lot of very beautiful fall pictures because of the date of the contest.
Yeah.
So, and that is something that we had talked about as well, is do we move the contest to different points in the year? So there's no limitation on what time of year or when your photo was taken. So even though it was open, the dates that it was open, you could still submit fall and winter photos if that's what you have that are on file, right? But we have had that internal discussion to say, well, do we need to do one from, February to
I think
April
your
just
most
to,
beautiful time of
right.
year is just on the doorstep.
Well, the
Yeah.
people that won last year, there were winter ones, right? And we had contestants that had winter photos this
So-
year,
Yeah,
so.
hopefully it'll just cute.
Yeah, no,
so that may be something,
could be a communication thing.
and it could be maybe a reminder as well, right? We would just remind everyone, take your photos now and watch for the contest in 23. Right?
Because if Mr. Bauer is judging, we're gonna be going for the fall pictures.
Insider tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I know Nikita did a a really large amount of research looking at other municipal photo contests to try and determine what some of the best practices and common planks were. And it seemed like not putting that limitation on, you know, your photo must be taken between date X and date Y in order to be eligible. We're just saying the contest is open. If you have a photo that's 10 years old, feel free to submit it, right? We haven't put those date parameters on. It's just the parameters are on the technical side. Okay, so I'll write that down as a follow-up point. But I think that covers off the majority of what we had on the photo contest part of things. And then that leads me into the summer events. And this is the problem when you download a small photo into our software for our meetings, it gets stretched out because I know Bruce is very tall, but
It's
he's
skinny
not as
too.
tall as he is in the photo on page 50. So my apologies for the quality and kind of the stretching on those two, but that was our business grand opening that we did for Euro Farms, and that was one of our open farm days, farm locations this year. So they had a smaller crowd there, but it was a wonderful event and a very energetic and enthusiastic crowd. And it is quite interesting that we have these chuck wagons now available that you can kind of rent to sleep in, as well as they have sort of a U-Pick and that kind of thing that is underway. So very exciting to see them open. We had a lot of fun with them. Councillor Preston, did you have any comments about that day?
No, it was good. They're just starting, so it's, but I think they got a good thing going. And it'd be interesting to see where they proceed to. Good people.
Yeah, very, very much so. And then I was at Backwoods Buffalo Ranch again this year as well. They were our other participating farm and open farm days. And again, they did the pig roast and had a number of vendors there. And the evening before, because they were open on both the Saturday and the Sunday. So the Saturday we were at Euro Farms, the Sunday I was at Backwoods Buffalo. But it was a pretty serious windstorm that rolled through on the Saturday evening, so they were gathering tents and children and material and more tent awnings, and they had a bit of an active evening, but everything all said and done and all told was really, really good. And based on the success of what they've done the last couple of years through Open Farm Days, Backwoods Buffalo Ranch, and if you go to their website and into their materials, they're actually doing a fall event as well. That's sort of the same type, but this is something that is just entirely their event. So we're starting to kind of see that happen because they've seen the success, and it's grown out of their participation in the Open Farm Days. So we did provide tents at a number of different events for Ag Societies, community groups, the running event, the youth rodeo, the Blue Ridge Family Fun Day. We did have a very, trying to think of the right word, I'll say intense year. In regards to struts and supports and legs and tents being lifted up off the ground and dropped onto cattle trailers and all that kind of thing. So we have a number of damaged tents that we're in the process of kind of fixing and doing some different things with. But the problem is our tents turn into big parachutes. And the worst one was at the youth rodeo. They had a tent, even though it was weighted and everything the way that it was supposed to be, was picked up and got dropped on top of a horse trailer where two of the legs popped through the roof of the horse trailer and then snapped off. And no one was injured and no animals were injured, but it had the potential to be quite an event. So that's the downside of the tents. The positive side, of course, is the publicity and the presence and everything that we get out of them. But the downside is this year it was an incredibly difficult year on some of our tents. And it may just be that some of them are showing their age as well, but we have enough bits and pieces from other ones that we're kind of working through the supply and through the repair process anyways. And then for the parades, as everyone knows, the White Court Canada Day Parade was canceled due to low number of entries, but we did have the Fort Assiniboine Parade and the Barhead Parade, where with the help of the Museum Society, we had a float with the canoe on it and we were promoting the bicentennial. And so I'll ask our councillors if they had any comments or any feedback on the Fort Assiniboine Parade.
It was very well attended. There was lots of families and kids along the parade route, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
They ran out of, I guess I wasn't there, I was on holidays, but they ran out of food for the pancake breakfast because of the turnout. So I think it was in excess of 650 people so
That's great.
for the breakfast. So yeah, all of the community response that I heard was that they were really happy with what turned out there. So
And going back to the Blue Ridge Family Fun Day, I just find this such a good thing the county does. It's nice to see the people that come there. It's families. Number one, it's a nice spot.
It's beautiful.
It's free. The families can come out, with their kids, and there's something for all of them to do. And like they could go out canoeing. I would like to see more being done there on Family Fun Day, but just to see the families come out together is such a big thing. And there's so many events that are targeted at certain,
Right.
how would I say it, aspects. But this one, it's just come out, enjoy yourself, and it's not something you see all the time, where people come out and just enjoy themselves. There's no pressure, no nothing, and they get a free hot dog and a bottle of water. And some are 5 or 6 hot dogs.
such a good community building event. Like
Oh,
any of
COVID
these,
taught us a
any of
few
these
things.
are, yeah.
You know?
You're right.
People are really craving that connection now more than ever.
Yeah,
I think it's
Well,
right.
and I
That's how
think
we were raised.
I think in inviting people to the celebration and that the county, like as an organization, sponsors these things, so as a community building event is unique. There's not very many communities that are still doing this, or municipalities that are doing this. So, yeah, I think it's very
I think we
cool.
had over 250 people show up, but at the same time, Blue Ridge Lumber had their baseball game and barbecue the same day, so a lot of the members of the community were up there. So, yeah, we got to continue to do this, and hopefully in a bigger way.
Just speaking of community, the Anselmo Hall site with the playground, I think, what a great site. Haven't stopped specifically in the last year or so, but beautiful. And I know people in that area love going skating. They're so appreciative of that skating rink out there. So just when you're talking about families, kudos to the county for looking after the Anselmo area. That's a cool place.
The Anselmo Ball Tournament was just this last weekend, and so we have actually two of our tents, well, three of our tents are there
Okay.
over the weekend, and they have their Red Eye Ball Tournament where they're up all night. So
Yeah.
I figured about Wednesday, Thursday of this week, we might finally hear from
Yeah.
them to find out how everything had gone.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a-
the
it's a
Anselmo
good
Ball
place.
Tournament was on this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good place.
I was just gonna say, with mentioning that, maybe that's as well, something in the future that we can look towards is having, you know, a skate and cocoa night or something, evening at Anselmo, or just to get engagement in multiple communities.
We do have that in Blue Ridge, the community league puts it on,
Mhm.
skate night for all the kids, and they have cocoa and marshmallows and.
Okay.
Awesome.
Did not know that. That's cool.
I knew in Blue, I find actually there's a lot going on in Blue Ridge, and
That's good.
even with the library has some great programs. And, cause my grandkids live
Mm.
in Blue Ridge, and I find they access a lot in the town, or in the village, I should say.
Well, and it's interesting is when, you know, years ago I went down to Wascata and because in the wintertime that's their social gathering place. It was incredible to see that every age group from 2 years old to 60 years old would play shinny hockey in these things, and there was this camaraderie. It didn't matter how many goals were scored, it just mattered that you played. And I think that's a social fabric that we need to bring back into our communities here.
Like,
Cool. I agree. I
Uh,
love it.
I know there's a group trying to raise some funds to do cross-country ski trails at the Blue Ridge Rec area.
Oh, okay.
Outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
So, I know that's coming to the community services group.
You would attract a ton of the Birkbeiner guys that are, you know, because it's just a different group of demographics that you would attract them
That
to
would be
areas
awesome.
like this. It's has always been oh yeah, I think that's a really good thing to support.
And because there's some in Merithorpe, but they're on private land, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and the rec area, I think there's 4 kilometers of trails
Really? Did not know
around
that.
the lakes. So,
Good to hear.
And you know
I'm excited.
that if you have people come into something like that, you could really get buy-in to expand.
Because the number of people that use the golf course here is amazing.
I know once that I was bringing a technician to town and bringing them around the area, trying to entice them to move here. And we got through the tour. The last place I had taken him, like we did Eustis, we went out and went around Carson, and he was looking for things to impress his wife, to encourage her to come. And the last thing I just happened to say was, I said, oh, and in the wintertime, I said, there's a number of people who do cross-country skiing in the trails at Carson. And as an aside, that was the thing that sold him. You know, so it
Yeah.
is something that people that do it love it, and from an infrastructure perspective, it's not something very expensive to do, so.
go ahead, Rick.
So on the trail part of it, what I didn't mention, I didn't really put much in on the Golden Triangle, but we had our first Golden Triangle meeting of the season right here about a week ago. Everything seems to be sorting itself out well for the GT this year. It looks like it'll be a fairly routine year. But what I have also had, we have, if you look on the map, it is shown actually as the White Court ski area. So there is a cross-country ski area that is just to the west of White Court and sort of sandwiched between the two highways. It's north of 43 and south of where the Blue Ridge Highway is. And I know there's a pony club, a riding club that's been using those trails. The ski club seems to have kind of migrated away. But one of the conversations that we've started to have with them is to talk about how can we maybe do some kind of multi-use trails or some of that. And so we're at the very beginning of those discussions, but we have talked about the possibility of her maybe coming into, I think it was our November or our December meeting, to maybe present as a bit of a delegation to understand what they're doing. Because in that situation, that's a provincial rec site. So there isn't much that we as the county can do for the operation of it. But given now that they have the pass system and some of that the province has brought in, there are maybe some guidelines or maybe some things we can do where we can kind of tie some of these groups together or tie some of the uses together. Or if we have areas that are, this area is designated for ATVs, this area is designated for snowmobiles, this area is designated for horses, we can at least kind of do a guide of that kind, right? Or to indicate where those uses can be accommodated within the county. So the trail use part of things is certainly something that is on our agenda.
Cool.
And if there's nothing else then on the summer events, what is the last event that I have is the SiteLink, and just a couple of follow-ups from there. So what's incredibly interesting is the IEDC, the International Economic Development Council conference is happening as we speak in Oklahoma City. This is day 2 of the conference. My understanding is Paige is there, and I believe Paige is on the site selector, their site selector committee, which they do is kind of the final event on the final day. So we might even get a mention of Woodlands County and the fact that SiteLink was held here at the IEDC conference. But what is most exciting is Lac La Biche County has confirmed that they will be hosting the SiteLink conference from May 31st to June 2nd next year. And then Red Deer County has also confirmed and committed with Paige that they'll be doing it in 2024. And we know that he's having discussions with Greenview to be there in 2025. So we're kind of, our secondary goal was, can we light a fire?
When was that one in Lac La Biche?
Lac La Biche will be May 31st to June 2nd. And I would recommend that we have some kind of a presence there, but that will be part of the budget discussions, of course.
And that was my comment, is I just wanted to ask is if this request has been brought forward for the budget discussions for those years, because I think it'd be, again, very important that a substantial allocation is made for both of those years.
I think that's personally, that's the education component that an ECDEV committee needs to have. And I really think that if I wouldn't have been able to participate in the entire thing the way that I was able to, just because of where I was, I definitely wouldn't have got the complete picture. So I'm going to be pushing to have ECDEV members, the chair for sure, participate, and I think that it would be a good idea for a number of members of council to do that as well, because it is an eye-opener. It really is.
Interesting.
Excellent.
So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need more than just a presence there, or
Yeah.
a continued presence. I think this is where our research from our first conference gets presented at the second conference. So our top 25 or our top 30 businesses that are shovel ready, and a breakdown of what those individual sites has to offer. We need to have that ready for this conference, because that's what we heard from our site selectors was that's what we go looking for when we try and match our investment dollars to opportunities in the county or otherwise. So a presentation, I think, is warranted
Yep.
at that conference, and whatever supports that. It also gives us an opportunity to reconnect with these site selectors and say, now we've got a year of research where we've heard what you need, and now we're presenting to you a package of what's ready to go, so that when they get the heads up on an opportunity, they go, yeah, I know Woodlands, they've got 25 sites, 3 of these are gonna meet the criteria, and I can, in a matter of a week, check them off the list and bring them to the client.
Absolutely.
That'd be good.
well, and that's what you said about the presentation. I was fortunate enough to attend the presentations on the last day, I believe it was, and we had a presenter from I guess Mackenzie County, we were Mr. O'Rourke was from.
Yeah.
And I still have the disc. And what was really interesting was that not very many of us knew how much was being done up there in not only just a provincial perspective, but in a Canadian perspective. And that's what blew me away. And I think that that's what you said about a presentation. And this is where the economic development game becomes interesting, is it doesn't matter how many times you're at these things. Every time that you're able to present, you're presenting something that somebody might pick up on. And so that's was the interesting part for me. And so you hit the nail on the head when you said we need a presence there, and we need to absolutely convince our councils that if you want things to happen here, you need to be there.
Yeah, never know.
Go ahead, Art.
So I'm happy to say I've had a couple of really good conversations with the ECDev team from Lac La Biche, and it's incredibly interesting how, you know, one group learns from another, much as we've been talking about with the benchmarking and some of that. So their pockets are a little bit deeper than what the counties are, and so they've actually committed $75,000 just from the county to the project. And so it's, you know, I'm not sure what the opportunities for us to present will be. I'm certainly, I put that in John Anderson's ear, who's a good friend and colleague. And if we have that opportunity, I'll find out what the price point is, and we can, you know, kind of work our way through that way. Yeah, it's going to be SiteLink as we knew it, and actually if you go to the SiteLinkforum.com site page, already has the dates and everything changed over, the agenda is there. We may have some of the same site selectors back. It might be an entirely new crew other than Paige, because that's what he likes to try to do as well, is to, you know, rotate through the site selector group. But I have been in contact with I think just about all of them. I think six of them for sure, since SiteLink, on at least one or more occasions. So, you know, we're kind of keeping the Woodlands part of things going, and we have had a couple of possibilities and things that have been discussed. So, yeah, it certainly was good for us, and I'm excited to see that the feedback this committee has given has been so positive, because it would not have happened without the support and the belief from all of you that we should have done it. And I'm glad that we did, and it's exciting to see the mantle being passed on, and we'll be part of it in whatever way we possibly can be.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Just in regards to the work plan updates in this section, one of the things that I was looking at that we had kind of discussed before, now that the strategic plan has come out and changed a bit, in this section, I think it would be really beneficial to have a one-page, you know, like an Excel sheet that's added to it that is the work plan updates, showing the category, like, I know, and action items that are open and closed. And I know a number of different committees that have been a part of that's been inherent in the committee package. And in looking at it under this section, for example, like we talked about the EV charging stations. And, you know, that's something, an example of an item that would live in this action list is that we were waiting for feedback on that EV charging station item. And now I think with our current format, it's very easy to forget and lose some of the valuable discussions we've had. And the other really great outcome of this list is at the end of a year or the end of a term, then you have these closed action items that you can go back and say, this has been the outcome of this committee. And we've achieved, or the EDO has achieved these, you know, these items. And sometimes it can be an item sits there open, and it may be open for a year, but it also may be something that's open and closed within a month, or those kind of things. But it gives us also, in preparing for a meeting, a very quick visual where we can just go straight to that checklist and we can look at it and go, okay, this item we need to address. Because another one was the daycare training funding that we had talked about, and that has kind of fallen off the radar as well. You know, so I think it would just be a way to connect those dots that we've been missing.
No, I agree.
Accountability, really.
And I think it's really important to be able to share an outcome with council. For example, like you guys had mentioned, the ECDEV committee is new, or newer, and if somebody had asked, okay, well, what bang for the buck are residents getting from this committee? And if you can go through 5 years of closed action items and say, this, and this, and it actually gives a better framework to show what the committee has accomplished. And in saying that, I see just in the last number of months how much the agenda's changed and the changes you made from the discussion we had at the last meeting. And I think the flow of the meeting actually went much, much better
Yep.
than it did in the past. So I love the changes you've made.
Well, they're your changes, so I was happy to make them. I'm just glad I got them right.
Anything else? I just wanna bring something up, it's not part of the work plan, but in the last month, I'll go back. We've talked so much about trying to keep our youth here instead of going to the city.
Yeah.
But in the last month, there's probably 5, I'm gonna say kids, you know, early 20s, that are leaving to go to the city. They have jobs here, good jobs. But what it is the social aspect. They say there's nothing here for them. And it's, they're not looking for things like the Alan and Jean Miller Center and an Arts and Culture Center. It's the whole social aspect of having everybody together. There's so many people that they're meeting. It's just a different way of living, I guess. And I can say, I lived in a small town, and when I was about 28, I moved to Edmonton. I got a better job, I met more people, and it's just
A cycle.
a cycle. And then, like you say, you brought somebody here with his wife and family later in life, where they want a different way of life. So I think we say so much that we want to keep our kids here, but I think we're not going to. So it's sad to see, but I think it's just life.
Sometimes I think.
Yeah, this is not the first time we saw this when our research project, I'm trying to remember which research document it was. It was one of the things that young professionals, young 20-ish, were having a hard time finding a lifestyle around here that brought them together, some of them for social reasons, but it was mentioned in a previous study that was something that the region could develop on.
I think that may have been with Community Futures, that
Yeah.
work we did in like 2018, 2019 around that regional profile and the labor profile. I think it might have come from.
I feel that a drain too that I've experienced, you know, with some of our workforce and seen with some of the young people that we wouldn't have thought about in the past is online dating has had a big impact on people leaving the area. Because what's happening is, for example, I could think of 3 people right off the top of my head that started online dating and met people from other communities and have now moved.
Yeah.
And in the past, we used to have things like community events like dances, you know, in some of these halls and so on, where people were meeting and interacting with more people from the community. So then they're meeting these people and staying in the community. And I think the draw of the city is always going to be the bane of a rural existence. But the rural existence used to include more community events, like the things that you've mentioned. And I really, really love that you brought this up because I come from an area that was an extremely small rural community as well. And I really see the benefit, like we, you know, in engaging young people and what do they want to see here And a lot of times, if you ask them what they want, they don't even know. But we need to find ways to engage them in social activities. And I see other councils in some of these small towns, when I was young growing up, they were, you know, older people from the community that were so out of touch with what the young people needed and wanted to engage in, that I think even by bringing it up and having this discussion is the start. Like, that, it's really important. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, like, it's something that I didn't think about. I guess I forgot about it because I moved on,
We do.
but it's something that just happens. And I don't know if we can change it, because I don't think we have the population base to change it.
I think
It's, go
Well,
ahead.
maybe twofold, retaining or at least giving our youth skills that they're successful and contributing somewhere, right? And that may draw them back eventually because of our resources, because of opportunities here. But I think also our community is changing somewhat. I volunteer at the Repeat Boutique, and you know, I may work at night or during the day, but I worked when it was open. That was a whole different community than what I've seen uptown, a whole different world. And I'm thinking, wow, where have I been that I missed these people, you know? And so I think our community has shifted also, you know? So anyways,
Well, and it's really interesting. I had this conversation with my daughter because she didn't see opportunity here in that, exactly that social aspect as a woman. And so she moved into the city, and she met a lot of people with the like-minded and things like that. But what was really interesting, she's moving back. And it's because her roots are here, and she's possibly going to bring somebody with her. So, you know, and so I asked her, I said, what are the things that really stood out for you? And it's exactly what you pointed out. It was the social aspect of the community and family that does not exist in that place. There's that excitement and that social aspect as a young person. We've all been there. But eventually, those community things and those things are going to come back and actually ground you. So I'm happy with that.
I'm back to, you know, we need a post-secondary presence here, because a lot of that happens in post-secondary technical and trades. And
yeah.
I know that there's an ongoing discussion, and full disclosure, as a past person that contracted for Northwest College. It's time for Regional College. Northern Lakes has got some real advantages to bring to a trades-hungry area. And I know that there's a Campus Alberta conversation that's going on here. And at one time, through our work at the Expo, the Education Expo, and the Business Development Group, a post-secondary presence here that offers that technical trades as well as professional directions, I think could be part of that solution, and hopefully with a change in post-secondary funding that would accommodate more rural development, we could keep that on our radar screen and support it wherever we could. Patricia?
I know when you made that, or when you mentioned that, it made me think back when I moved to this area. I was 22, and you could come to Whitecourt. You could go to a country bar. You could also go to a dance club. You could go bowling. You know, these are all things we no longer have. That used to be things young people could come easily and do, where now they're going to St. Albert or Edmonton or Spruce Grove or whatever it is. So even if recognizing some of these social events could mean down the road helping to sponsor a community dance, maybe it can be something as simple as that we can start to make tiny changes. Like, obviously, we can't control whether there's a country bar and a dance club, but you can certainly help when we're talking about tourism or development or those kind of areas, then maybe part of economic development in those is giving people a reason to be entertained. And if that's a comedy night or what it is, maybe we have a Woodlands County social night once a month in a different community.
Well, I just wanna say one thing extra is, our motto has been, how do we keep our kids here? I think it has to change, because we're not gonna change the mentality of the kids. They wanna go out and experience life. It has to be, how do we bring our kids back?
Absolutely.
And you want them to leave.
Development.
Part of it is, I guess, if I think of it as a parent, I want them to leave and go and experience and bring that experience back to build our community and make our community more modern.
Go ahead, Bert.
You guys are just the best. So, yes, how do we attract young families? That is a focus piece. And that may be what we use to fill in the CEDD or something like that. But how do you attract young people that want to live here, stay here, build and grow families in their lives here, right? The youth retention piece, of course, all of us, we want our kids to be close to us, absolutely. But, you have to consider, is that what's best for them too, right? I mean, sometimes they need to go and spread their wings and fail a few times and do their thing and then come back. And they have the skill sets and those kinds of things. Creating collision spaces where new people can meet is a huge, huge part of something that we can develop and build and grow into. Because you're right, things have changed post-COVID. Things aren't the same as they were before. I think back to a few years ago, they were having some issues in Alaska because it was like 70% males, 30% females. And Alaska actually did a national US recruitment campaign, Alaska Needs Women. And they just focused on profiles of single guys that were in Alaska and what they did and all. And it was a heck of a marketing campaign. But it comes down to, what's the issue, right? And I mean, if the issue is the recruitment of young families, there's a lot that we can pile behind that.
I think one of the things too is to recognize it's not just families in the changing structure, because one of the things we're seeing just a massive change in is young people not having children
Yes.
and having dogs.
So
there is a lot of people, and that's one of as you were talking, and I'm saying, I'm like, oh, you know what I used to do? I used to pack up my dogs and go to Jasper to the dog park. But in Woodlands County, that might be something as well that we can say, you want to live here, look at all these dog-friendly areas we have.
And I mean, if there's a gap we have, it's that we don't have a dog park in Woodlands County. And it's like, geez, that's interesting. And it's like, well,
So
arguably the whole place is a dog park, but,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
In the interest of tabling this discussion on multiple levels for an upcoming meeting, which I would be very pleased to do, I would like to make a motion that we accept the information under work plan updates as presented. And if we would like to add any other agenda items to a future meeting as they relate to that, I'm very willing to go forward with that. So I'd like to make a motion to accept that.
Okay, motion accepted. Any questions on the motion?
Absolutely.
Call the question, all in favor? So
Yeah.
passed.
And so I think we have probably a future meeting topic of some point. The last thing was just a change in our next meeting date. I'd sent the calendar change out to everybody. If everyone is okay with that, just to accommodate use of this room for some other internal uses, we would just move that meeting to October 25th, if that works.
It's good with me.
It's good with me as well.
That works for you as well.
Okay, so October 25th then would be our next meeting, and I'm going to see if I can find us a delegation for that meeting. Like I said, I'm not sure whether it would be Cami or whether it maybe Our Lady from the Horse Club, because I know I had talked to her about either October or November, so I'll try to confirm.
Could we ask that delegations be set to a time frame? For example, like 15 minutes?
That's policy, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's false.
Okay,
That's-
perfect.
That's policy, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, very good. And then that just leaves one last motion.
SCA made a motion to adjourn.
No. 12:13.
All in favor?
There's no discussion?
You can try that.
As I'm packing up.
Just give me a moment, I'll stop our stream here, because I know how to stop it, I just don't know how to start it.
Good meeting.
Excellent.
All I can
Yeah.
say is this is, I always enjoy coming to these meetings with the folks that are here. Because it's so in alignment with the way that